The way money moves around the world, it's really the lifeblood of our global economy. And right now, it's going through a massive change. And we're not just talking about some temporary dip here. This is a deep, structural reordering of how everything works. So today, we're going to break down exactly what's happening, the powerful forces that are driving this shift, and why it's creating a whole new set of winners and losers.
This quote just nails it. It perfectly captures the scale of what's going on. That whole era of easy, almost seamless globalization that we've lived through for the past few decades, well, it's fading. And what's taking its place is something a lot more cautious and, frankly, a lot more political. So, what do we call this new era? The term being used is geostrategic globalization. And what that really means in simple terms is that huge economic decisions, like where you build a factory or who you trade with, are now being filtered through a political and a national security lens. It's not just about finding the cheapest place to make something anymore. Now it's all about finding the safest and most strategically friendly partner.
And this big shift is building into what our sources are calling a new world order. It's really defined by the return of a powerful, kind of old school idea, economic statecraft. So these are the new tools of power. Nations are flexing their economic muscles for strategic goals more and more. We see it everywhere, with super strict export controls on critical tech like semiconductors, with sanctions being used left and right, and with much tougher screening of any foreign investments. Those economic ties that we once thought were bridges for peace, now they're seen as potential weaknesses, something to be managed, or even to be weaponized.
Okay, so where's the actual proof of this new world order in action? Well, the clearest signal you can find is to just follow the money, or, in this case, the lack of it. Here it is, the headline number. In 2024, global foreign direct investment, we call it FDI, and that's the really important long-term money that builds factories and creates jobs, it fell by a staggering 11%. This chart just lays it out in really stark terms. We went from almost $1.5 trillion in global investment down to about $1.3 trillion in just 1 year. That's over $160 billion in projects and growth that, well, it just didn't happen. It's a crystal clear sign that global integration is slowing down. And this isn't just a one-off blip. The latest data we have from the first half of 2025 shows the trend is still going, with another 3% drop. So this isn't some temporary reaction to a single event, it's a sustained contraction. The problem is actually getting deeper. So what is going on? What's behind this major slowdown in the flow of global money? The answer, really, goes back to that fundamental shift in priorities we were just talking about. This right here really spells out the new logic. The old way of doing things was pretty simple. Money chased the biggest profit, which usually meant going to the place with the lowest costs. But in this new era of geostrategic globalization, money now chases security. Capital is literally being rerouted to countries that are seen as politically safe and low risk, even if they aren't the absolute cheapest option. And this has created a whole new dictionary of terms, right? You've probably heard things like friendshoring, which is, well, it's exactly what it sounds like, doing business with your friends. Or nearshoring, which is all about moving supply chains closer to home to cut down on risk. And what's the result of all this? Commerce is actually becoming more concentrated among a few big economic blocks, not more globalized. But here's where it gets really interesting. When we dig deeper into the actual investment numbers, we find a pretty surprising twist. It's not as simple as everything just getting smaller. There's a major reshuffling happening just under the surface. Okay, so first, the really worrying part. The number of brand new, built from the ground up investment projects, what the experts call greenfield projects, fell by 17% in the first half of 2025. That is a huge drop in new ventures being started. So the natural question to ask is, okay, does this just mean less money is being invested everywhere? Is everything just contracting? Well, actually, no, not exactly. And here is the twist. Even though the number of projects tanked, the total value of those projects, it actually went up by 7%. So wait, how is that possible? Fewer projects, but more money? This chart really explains the paradox. What we're seeing is a massive boom in huge, super expensive investments, but they're only going into a few key strategic sectors, like AI, digital infrastructure, and semiconductors. At the same time, funding for other really critical areas, like international projects for infrastructure in developing countries, is actually contracting. It's creating a kind of two-tiered system for global investment. And this split isn't just happening across different sectors, it's also happening geographically. The money isn't spreading out. Instead, it's pooling in just a few specific high-tech hubs. And one country in particular stands out as the main destination for all this concentrated capital. Yep, the United States. While FDI fell in most other developed countries, the money flowing into the US surged by nearly 20% in 2024. And this was almost entirely driven by those giant semiconductor and AI projects. So what you have is capital becoming scarcer for most of the world, but hyper-concentrated for a select few. So if we put all these pieces together, what does it all mean? Our sources argue we've entered a completely new phase of the global economy. It's an era they're calling strategic sobriety. And strategic sobriety, well, it basically means the party's over for that easy, risk-blind globalization. Capital is now way more careful, it's scarcer, and it's being sent out with a very clear strategic purpose, flowing to secure technologies and to safe political havens. The implications of this are just profound. For the huge number of developing countries that really depend on foreign money to build roads, power plants, and just to drive growth, this new, cautious world creates a much, much tougher reality. The competition for that scarcer, more strategic capital is now incredibly fierce. Which leaves all of us with a defining question for the future, really. In this new world of strategic sobriety, where investment is guided just as much by politics as it is by profit, who is actually positioned to win? The answer to that is going to shape the next chapter of the entire global economy.